Everyone knows that trying to pull off a sequel better than the first is a Herculean task. Terminator Judgment Day, The Dark Knight, Sharknado 2, the second one, all absolute masterpieces in their own right. But then you have Hades 2, the titanic sequel to a game that was basically a god among men. It has some massive shoes to fill, and honestly, it's a hauntingly beautiful experience that I sometimes want to throw through a window. But that doesn't stop it from being a kick-ass game to play. Let me show you what I mean. Now, Hades 2 is a challenging game. I mean, it's a roguelite, so of course it is. Duh. But one thing it does incredibly well is never make the challenge feel unfair or ridiculous like so many others that cater to ego gamers do. Sure, there will be times where you bang your desk yelling, but unless you intentionally punish yourself with the Oath of the Unseen, or really don't like the roguelite formula in general, then I would argue it's incredibly hard not to fall in love with the gameplay. Starting each run as an edgy, fragile Tumblr girl, only to slowly become a titan killer by unlocking new boons and upgrades from the gods, is an incredibly fun gameplay loop, and having to constantly adapt and make smart decisions does a great job of keeping you engaged both mentally and physically. Some of my most memorable experiences in the game were the aha moments of finding different combinations of boons that when blended together turn you into an unstoppable ass-whooping force of nature. Oh, yeah. It's a game where the more you play, the more exhilarating it gets, and it really rewards you for having the patience and willpower to push through the complex but steady difficulty curve. What I love most about it is that just like with the first, there are plenty of ways to make the game harder for yourself once you get more experienced, but not in a forced, obnoxious way like so many others. As I mentioned earlier, there's something called the Oath of the Unseen. Basically a set of difficulty modifiers you can add to your run to make it more challenging for greater rewards. And in my opinion, this should be the gold standard approach that most developers take towards difficulty in their games. Make the game challenging enough at first to hook you, but then give you the agency to make it more punishing if, when, and however much you want. As a slight deviation from that point though, I really want to say, fuck Prometheus and the knob goblin who designed him. That whole fight is probably the worst in the series, and I genuinely don't find it fun having to constantly run around like a decapitated hoping to get 1 or 2 hits in before he fucking smites me in 3. But I digress. Moving on though, the new magic system they added to the sequel is a fun addition that forces you to be a little smarter with how you play. And even though I can understand how fans of the first game might find it frustrating because of the freedom they lost, I personally thought it added an extra layer of depth to the adaptability point I mentioned earlier. Not only that, but I also thought that hexes were significantly more pleasant to use than the wrath system of the first, and felt a lot more fun and intuitive than the hit, don't get hit nonsense from before. Where the big issue comes in is pairing this new limitation on magic with the utterly dogshit dash changes they made. I'm all for me having to think harder with how I play and the decisions I make, but don't pair that with a straight up downgrade to a system that worked so well before and not replace it with something equally rewarding. Zagreus was an incredibly agile and zippy character, and again, I can understand wanting the player to think a little bit more about how they play, but Melinoe simply feels worse off without anything meaningful to show for it. And no, the sprint mechanic is not impactful or useful enough to be considered a fair compensation for what was taken away. I mean, she's just a straight up worse version of Zagreus in some cases, which is frustrating because from a lore perspective she's pretty much one of the strongest characters in the game's entire Greek pantheon. The final gameplay changes worth mentioning are the Arcana cards and the Incantations of this game. I personally love the flexibility that the cards brought, even if they're conceptually very similar to the Mirror of Night from the first, and it's yet another step in the right direction of giving you the power and freedom to choose how you play, which pairs nicely with those limitations from the Oath of the Unseen. Conversely though, this game is way too grindy because of the Incantations in my opinion. I really love that they added the entire surface region to the game, basically doubling the potential variety of things to do. But the problem is that it added a whole lot more of tedious checklist goals just because I needed them for upgrades. I understand it's meant to make each run feel valuable and like it has purpose, but it effectively doubles the busy work you have to do, especially with the random nature of the game. It's incredibly fucking frustrating having to not play the underworld section when I wanted to, specifically so that I could farm specific items above ground just because I needed them to progress. The next point to discuss is the overall art direction and sound design of this game. Now I know I've made tongue-in-cheek comments about the overall Tumblr vibe of the game, and don't get me wrong, I ain't stopping anytime soon, daddy-o. But Great Zeus's Eagle, is this game fucking gorgeous. It has a hauntingly beautiful ethereal feel to it, and I really like the shimmery and occultic vibe of everything. Literally the main menu alone tells you everything you need to know about how excellent this game's art style is. In a world where everyone is pushing for hyper-realism and games that look bland and uninspired, it's incredibly refreshing playing something that understands that video games are meant to be art first and a commodity second. Even the character designs are all sick as fuck. Athena looks even more like a badass warrior goddess. Zeus probably has one of the coolest armor designs I've seen in a while, and don't even get me started on Hecate.
Oh my god, you could grind meat on it.
The sound design is yet another feather in their cap, and had Expedition 33 not been so exceptionally stand out, I definitely think Hades 2 could have won some sort of award at the Game Awards last year. Darren Korb did an incredible job with the soundtrack, and even if you never played the game, I encourage you to still listen to some of the songs, because they're that good. More importantly though, is the voice acting in this game, and just like with the first, every single vocal performance is incredibly well delivered. The voice actors did an amazing job in bringing their characters to life, and you can literally feel the tiny nuances behind each portrayal. Hecate is sly and sneaky sounding, Narcissus could not sound more vain, and Poseidon once again comes across as the fun uncle who hands you a sneaky beer at birthday parties. I could do this for each character, but you get the point. The main takeaway is that a lot of thought, insight, and attention was put into making sure each character sounded like what you'd hope they would. With that being said though, this next aside might be slightly controversial, and I don't want you to have a hissy fit over it. But there is one character who genuinely came across as incredibly obnoxious, and I could not fucking stand her at all.
Knowing that upon some evenings such as this, we Silver Sisters would make our stand.
Out of all the main characters, Selene probably has one of the most insufferably annoying voices I've ever heard in a video game. And even though I acknowledge it's well delivered, I detested hearing her talk. Every line she said had an obnoxiously forced, breath-heavy delivery, which when coupled with her over-exaggerated calmness, made me way more angry than relaxed, and I literally had to mute the game every time she appeared on screen. Now speaking of main characters, and hopefully I didn't lose you with that last comment, the obvious question is, how does Melinoe hold up to the much beloved Zagreus from the first? There's quite a lot of division over a character, and I can understand why, but I think it's best to demonstrate through a simple analogy. Now if you know ball, you would be very familiar with the absolute kick-ass brother-rival combo of Dante and Virgil from the Devil May Cry series. Zagreus and Melinoe are kind of like toned-down versions of those two, but without any overt rivalry between them. Where the problem comes in is that the archetype of Dante and Zagreus is a lot easier to pull off because it's inherently relatable to most people. Many people love the cheerful, quippy jokester like Deadpool, because I think many of us secretly wish we could be a little bit more lighthearted and playful. Virgil and Melinoe, however, are meant to be like Batman, the brooding stoic archetype that desperately relies on flawless execution to work well, or else it just kind of comes across as being an asshole. But unlike Virgil, who absolutely sells the character every single time, Melinoe is kind of just okay at the role, which unfortunately doesn't have the same leniency Zagreus does, even though he did a great job as well. I don't think she's bad per se, and I understand why she is the way she is with her entire backstory in the game. But unfortunately, if you're going to go the brooding I'm too cool for school route like they did with her, you have to execute it flawlessly, which I don't think they did well enough, and she sometimes just sounds like a bit of a douche. She's still awesome though, and I really want her to return, but hopefully in the next game they can build up a bit of that sibling rivalry and really flesh her character out to be the badass they were going for. With all that said though, the burning question you probably still have is this game truly worth it? And can I really trust those 62,000 Steam user reviews that say yes? Well, Let me put it to you like this. If you're a fan of games that respect your time and money, while simultaneously honoring the spirit of what games are meant to be, namely art, then this is the game for you. If, however, you have the taste and preferences of a 6-year-old British monk, then you should probably give this one a pass and buy the next FIFA clone for the 13th time. Hades 2 is a delightful game with an incredibly simple yet addictive gameplay loop. It's fun, pure and simple, both to play and to look at. With all things said and done though, I'm out and want to thank you for your time. If you enjoyed the video and made it this far, you're an absolute champ, and maybe consider liking and sharing this video with your friends so that the algorithm, the gods of Olympus, don't abandon me like they did Kratos. But nevertheless, until next time, I'm out and I hope to see you in the next video.